Welcome to another OCD Recovery Instagram Live. I'm going to be covering all the different questions relating to OCD on here in the comments. So if you just put those below here, I will answer those all now. Anything you want to ask in relation to your OCD journey, just put it in the comments and I will cover those. I'll spend about 20 minutes to half an hour on here covering all your questions. I've been meaning to come on here and do a questions section, but I often come on here and do different topics and focus on those. So I will cover all of that today. We used to do a lot of question and answers. It used to be the main sort of focus of all the live stuff we did. But then I moved over to doing much more subjects as we were covering so many questions in the webinars and group calls. So I'm back doing some questions. Nick, if you would like to jump on this live, if you are free, you can. If not, and you just want to cover questions, please feel free to help out in the comments below. So anything you guys want to ask about your OCD journey, any specific questions, just put them in the comments and I will cover those now. Yeah, probably not the best idea, Nick. I'll get in trouble if I encourage you to do an Instagram live whilst driving. That wouldn't be a good idea at all. It's so difficult to what to do in my life. I feel it's a dark tunnel and I have no idea where to start or what to do. Well, yeah, it always feels like that at the beginning, very much. And lots of the journeys like that, sort of feeling lost. Am I on the right path? Am I doing the right thing? A lot of it can feel like that. So it's about realizing, okay, I'm going to take this one step at a time, one day. Like if you're running a business or you're an athlete, you might have an injury and you might have to adjust and adapt, all different things. And it's the same with the OCD recovery journey. You need to adjust and adapt as you go along and take it, looking at it in one day at a time, one moment at a time, instead of looking really far into the future. And that's why it's good to sort of box down the days and say, okay, well, let's see if how I make it through this morning, through the afternoon, through the evening, and do it in sections like that, because then it helps take the edge off instead of looking at it as too vast a time frame to concentrate on. Can OCD flare up in pregnancy? Absolutely, that's one of the most common ones. We see so many people come in during pregnancy that have OCD flare-ups or just after pregnancy. And we had a webinar that was covering pregnancy-related OCD, which was very nice for a lot of mothers to meet other people that were going through the same, so they didn't feel alone and completely lost. And it was also very nice to have a midwife there who was actually in the hospital talking everyone through the whole situation relating to pregnancy-related OCD, as well as flare-ups, having been through that herself and working with that all the time, which was great. Yeah, that's another topic we'll cover in a lot more detail because it's something that is so common and needs more coverage. How can you work on unconditional self-acceptance? The best way is to look at the reading list that's on our website, ocdrecovery.com, going through that, the first book by Albert Ellis, How to Stubbornly Refuse to Make Yourself Miserable About Anything, and the other book that's crucial is The Myth of Self-Esteem, and working through those books step by step. Those are the best places to start, and we've got a great webinar coming up on acceptance, covering all those parts of unconditional self-acceptance and much more. That one's pretty booked up, but there's still spaces for that. If you want to come along to that, just email us at info@ocdrecovery.com. Can OCD be without compulsions? Absolutely. A lot of my OCD for many, many years was without compulsions. What happened is I cut out all the compulsions, but I was still scared. I wasn't doing any compulsions, but the fear wasn't going down. So that's key. And so, yeah, you have to get under those fears. You have to look at those fears and you have to break down those core fears and look at the irrational beliefs that are associated, fused all around the base there, holding that locked. Any other questions you want to ask me about OCD? just put it in the comments. OCD, generalized anxiety disorder, panic attacks, any of that stuff. I will cover that all now. You can ask us any of your OCD questions, no matter what they are. Can OCD make you feel like you are losing sense of reality? Absolutely. That's part of what existential OCD is. Fear of being disconnected from reality, fear of being disconnected from loved ones, all of those kind of things, or fear of disconnection from yourself in all the various forms of existential, or which often latches to that too, depersonalization, derealization with physical anxiety symptoms and variations of that. Loss of connection with ourselves and with others is often one of the core fears. Is medication necessary? It can help take the edge off. Not just trying to get mosquito off my arm, biting me whilst I'm doing this. So medication is helpful for taking the edge off, but you don't have to take medication. I never took medication. For a lot of people, it's a game changer, and for some people, they prefer not to. 1 second, let me just put some of this mosquito spray on whilst I'm doing this video. Give me 1 second. You don't feel obligated. No, wait. Mosquito spray, my mouth. It's not a question of not feeling obligated. If you really want to, if you're really struggling, and you want to have the edge taken off a bit, definitely speak to your doctor about trying meds. 60, probably, I don't know the exact figure, but a large portion of people with OCD take medication. Helps take the edge off. There's no stigma on it. It's all nonsense. Looking back at the difficulty that I faced with OCD, it would have been a very good idea to have taken medication to help take the edge off for me, but I didn't. And but it's not necessary for recovery. It's not like it balances something in the brain that solves everything. It's not something like that, but it certainly does help take the edge off. It's not like it's a cure. People often mistake it and think it's a cure. Any more questions? Deal with confession to urge. Confession to urge is not getting the urge to confess is not getting you anywhere. It's never solving anything. It's never fixing things. It promises relief instantly afterwards and never delivers. So although that it feels like that's the answer, it isn't. So we really need to refrain. The same as if we were trying to come off drugs, addiction to drugs. We just basically have to be strict and stop it. And it's a case of that what we tend to do is we tend to think it's so hard to stop it, there must be another way, but it isn't. It's just a case of we've got to stop it and build up the habit of stopping it, and then that's how we get better. As part of it, remember, like I said to the other question, that cutting out compulsions is not the whole package. How do we come to the understanding of what our irrational beliefs are? First of all, by learning about that, and then looking at what those irrational beliefs are, where there's the musts, this must be a certain way, or that would be awful, terrible, catastrophizing, all that kind of stuff, and then breaking those parts down so that we don't stay stuck, latched in there. So fear for an irrational belief might be, if I get a disease, it'll be awful and unbearable. If I had a chronic disease, I couldn't stand it. That'd be irrational. Instead, it would be a preference. I would prefer not to have an irrational belief. I'm trying to catch this mosquito with the other hand. The irrational belief is that it's so unbearable, whereas in reality it's not unbearable. It's not as scary as we ever imagine. We always take it outside of the box to 110%, 120%, 130% awful bad out of the scientific sort of parameters. I think some of these mosquitoes are trying to watch this Instagram live. Got compassion for them, you know. If they're trying to watch it and they're trying to get better from OCD, I'll let them come on here. Let's have a look. Can you please help me? How do I focus on really important work and classes? The fear here is wanting to focus on work and classes. You are scared of not being able to focus. That's the fear of not being able to focus on your classes. That's what's fueling it all. So it's about learning to accept, even if you failed your classes, even if you made mistakes on your classes, even if you didn't get the results you wanted, that it's not the end of the world. That took me a while to see that, from when I was a student, when I was studying, to realizing that actually in our life, doesn't direct our whole life. We tend to have thought that through college and stuff, like this is the whole direction for our life. We know that's not true, because so many people don't do well in exams and then go on to succeed in so many different areas of life. Somebody there talking about sertraline for OCD and how it works wonders. Yeah, meds will help take the edge off. They will help take the edge off. You may have to change a few different meds with your doctor's advice and try different meds to see how you get on, but they do tend to take the edge off. And when you're suffering with OCD and it's something that's really sort of stubborn and sort of really pushing you and putting pressure on, having something that helps take the edge off is a real lifesaver often, and that's why we always encourage speaking to your doctor if need be. If you're really struggling and you really need help there, speak to your doctor. And there's no stigma in relation to meds. Really helps take the edge off. How does irrational beliefs work for existential? Well, what you're usually doing is, like, say, for example, a common existential fear would be solipsism, fear of being the only person who exists in the world, and so on, that kind of fear. So what tends to happen there with that fear is you are in a position where you're thinking, oh, if I'm the only person in the world, I can't connect with family, I can't connect with friends, that would be terrible, that would be awful to be disconnected, I couldn't stand that, I could never be happy again, and that's the irrational belief, whereas in reality you could be happy, and you could be okay with that, and you could still do everything, sunbathe, work out, eat nice food, listen to music, even in a world with solipsism world. So that's key, and we have to break that belief down often when it comes to that particular fear, solipsism, in relation to existential OCD. I'm just going to log back into this live. I will be back in 1 minute.